Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the reading of the fic entitled Weekend at Bakugo's. Here's the summary. While out on patrol, as part of a work study, Midoriya gets hit with a quirk that temporarily reverts him to being 4 years old. Midoriya has no quirk, and the only person at UA he remembers is Kacchan. Bakugo has to step up as the #1 babysitter, and he gets by with a little help from his friends. This fic is 19 chapters long, with just shy of 45,000 words. Here's Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Bakugo, could you come with me, please? Aizawa had stuck his head through the door, into their English class. The whole class turned to look at him, eyebrows raised. This was never good. He glanced at Present Mike, who nodded and gestured that he should move quickly. He snatched his bag from under his desk and slipped out of the classroom into the hallway. What's going on? Bakugo couldn't help the slight note of worry in his voice. He hadn't gotten into any trouble lately, so something must have happened to someone else. No one ever gets pulled out of class for good news. Nothing, Aizawa started. Well, no one's hurt, so there's no need to panic. Okay. Relief flooded Bakugo, and it was swiftly followed by curiosity. But... He prompted his teacher. Aizawa sighed, passing a hand over his face. Do you know where Midoriya was today? Aizawa asked. Yeah, on his damn work study. What's that got to do with... He stalled mid-sentence. What happened? Shit. Remember, I said no one's hurt. He's perfectly healthy, he's just... His teacher waved a hand around as if he was trying to pluck the right words from the air. It's better if you just see for yourself. Hopefully you'll understand why we need your help. Bakugo just stared as his teacher set off up the corridor. Since entering their second year, he and the nerd had become what could actually be considered friends, albeit friends who loved nothing more than to kick the crap out of each other on the daily. But it was still weird, very weird, that the staff would seek him out to help with Deku. After a second of hesitation, he stumbled into a run to follow. Aizawa stopped outside the door to the principal's office and turned to Bakugo. I'll go in with you, but first... Aizawa took a deep breath. The principal and All Might are inside, as is Midoriya. I'm going to have to ask you to watch your language. Of all the things Bakugo might have expected his teacher to say, that wasn't it. Swear words were like his speech filler. He swore as easy as breathing. Aizawa knew this, and so did All Might and the principal. What the hell is going on? The door was opened, and they stepped inside. The principal's face was unreadable. All Might looked concerned and amused. Then Bakugo saw, sitting in a big armchair next to the principal's desk, Deku. Except the chair dwarfed him completely. His little feet were stuck out over the front edge of the seat. Oh my fucking god. I gave you one job, kid. Aizawa groaned from beside him, pinching the bridge of his nose. What do you want from me? He's a fucking toddler. Kacchan shouldn't say naughty words. Ani Mitsuki said so, Deku squeaked. The principal and All Might looked shocked. He must have been quiet up until now. Not helping, nerd, growled Bakugo at the tiny version of his friend, and little Deku giggled at him. But he couldn't help noticing that Deku's eyes were a little red and puffy, and he was sitting very still with his pudgy little hands balled into fists in his lap. He was clearly unhappy. Bakugo gave him a wink, and imitated zipping his own mouth shut. That got another giggle, and Deku made moves to get out of the chair. Young Midoriya. All Might reached for the little boy, but Deku shook his head vehemently, and squirmed out of his grasp. He ran across the office to Bakugo, with his tiny arms outstretched, tears beginning to form in his eyes. Kacchan! He wailed. Bakugo froze for half a second before instinct kicked in. He bent down and lifted Deku into his arms. The little boy quickly tucked his head into Bakugo's shoulder, as if trying to hide from the world. Guess he doesn't know who you are, huh? Who any of you are, he said to All Might, acutely aware that both the principal and Aizawa were now staring at him. It appears not, at least not in this form. All Might gestured to his skinny frame. Maybe I should. No, the principal cut across All Might, shaking his head. We don't want to overwhelm Midoriya, or you to overexert yourself, he said pointedly, small eyes fixed on the former #1. Take a seat, Bakugo, and we'll fill you in on what we know so far. Bakugo sat in the chair that Deku had been in, who was still holding tight to a fistful of Bakugo's uniform, but was watching everything, and listened to how he had been out on patrol as part of the work study when his group had gotten caught up in a robbery. You can see the appeal, All Might chimed in. Having a quirk that can render guards and bystanders completely useless, and incredibly time-consuming for heroes to deal with, but does very little actual harm. How did Deku get hit? Bakugo asked. According to the reports, he pulled another intern out of harm's way and took the hit himself, answered the principal quietly. Bakugo rolled his eyes. Of course he did, idiot. He couldn't help but feel a little swell of pride toward his friend. Too kind for your own good, quite literally. Never change, moron, but we gotta work on your avoidance maneuvers. Does the report state how long the effects last? I'm guessing it's not permanent, otherwise you wouldn't be so calm, sir. Aizawa spoke for the first time since reprimanding Bakugo about his language. From what the police were able to gather, 3 days, so including today he should be back to normal by Monday. Deku stirred in Bakugo's arms and tugged on his uniform. Kacchan, he whispered. What's up, buddy? Bakugo whispered back, fully aware that the others could hear them, but keeping up the pretense for Deku's sake. I gotta pee, Deku whispered again. Bakugo snorted, grinning. Can you hold it for a little bit? We won't be much longer. He glanced up at the others for confirmation. Aizawa nodded quickly and with urgency asked the important questions. Are we keeping him at the school? Does his mother know? And most importantly, does he still have his quirk? The principal, super conscious of the fact that a 4-year-old may be about to pee on his carpet, answered just as fast. Yes. Yes, and as it's only temporary, then there may be yet further side effects, she has agreed that the school is the best place for him at this moment in time. As for his quirk, we don't know for sure, but he appears to have been reverted to how he was at the age of 4, that is, prior to presenting with any quirk, and Bakugo here is the only person in the building that he knows. Which is why we need you to be primary babysitter for the time being, young Bakugo, said All Might, again looking both concerned and more amused than he had any right to be. The staff body will, of course, be on hand to help all hours of the day, but it appears that this, the principal indicated to where Deku was curled up in Bakugo's lap, is the least stressful place for Midoriya for the time being. Bakugo nodded and stood up. Deku was tugging at his uniform again. Aizawa stood too. Sir, please keep me updated as to any new information. Meanwhile, I'll assist Bakugo with Midoriya as much as possible. I still have some of Eri's things that may be suitable for the situation. Thank you, that would be much appreciated. And thank you too, Bakugo. I wish you the best of luck, the principal said to them both as they headed for the door. Aizawa let them out into the corridor. He looked at Bakugo and the child in his arms. You sure you're going to be okay with this? He asked his student. His flat voice brokered no lies. Yeah, surprising even himself with how calm he sounded. I don't mind kids, really, and this one I've known all my life. The rest of the class is going to freak, though. Bakugo grimaced, remembering Deku's reaction to All Might, and multiplying it by 18. I'll brief the class, Aizawa assured him, and then pointed down the corridor. Nearest bathrooms are down there on the right. Quickly, before he ruins your uniform. Bakugo thanked him, and jogged as smoothly as he could down the corridor to the bathrooms. Kacchan? Deku murmured. Yeah? Who were all those people? Oh boy, this could get complicated fast. Let's get you sorted first, and then we'll go and get something to eat and I'll answer all your questions, okay? All of them? Deku trilled. Yep, every single one. Bakugo shouldered through one of the stall doors and lowered Deku to the floor in front of the toilet. Now, you know what to do. Yeah, of course I do, Deku shouted proudly, turning his back to Bakugo, who had to suppress a laugh. I'll be outside. You let me know when you're done, and we'll wash your hands. Bakugo shut the door behind him and hooked his foot under the bottom to keep it closed. After a few minutes, there was a little knock on the other side of the door as Deku asked to be let out. Thank God he didn't need help. Bakugo lifted Deku up to the sink so he could wash his hands. Then he washed his own while Deku made a mess of the paper towels. You gotta pick those up, Deku. It's not fair to leave a mess, he chided. He sounded like his dad, and he was immediately grateful that he didn't sound like his mother for once. The little boy did as he was told, and then made grabby hands at him. I'm pretty sure you can walk, kiddo. Bakugo sighed, resisting the strong urge to put his hands on his hips. Deku just screwed up his face, stuck out his bottom lip, and emphasized the grabby hands even further. Fine, but you walk after lunch. He scooped Deku up again, left the bathroom, and headed back the way they came. Deku was looking around him wide-eyed. What's for lunch, Kacchan? I don't know. We'll find out when we get there. Why, what do you fancy? Katsudan! Deku yelled, putting his hands in the air. You always want Katsudan, Deku. Bakugo shook his head, smiling. My name's not Deku. That's not nice, Deku said, confusion all over his baby face. Shit. This was a pre-Deku Deku. He must have only just turned 4 years old then. Sorry, buddy. I said it wrong. Why don't you tell Kacchan what you've been up to since you last saw me, okay? Bakugo hoped he could find out what the kid remembered. At least it might help work out some details of the quirk and how much, if any, of current Deku was in 4-year-old Deku's head. Yep, this was definitely going to get complicated. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 1 of Weekend at Bakugo's. Chapter 2 will be up next. I really like this fic a lot. I think the author does a really nice job of it. I'm a big fan of age regression or de-aging quirk fics. Let me know your overall thoughts and reactions to everything so far, though, and as always, thank you so much for listening.